Do you want to hear what I have in my notes like immediately?
Oh my God, please.
I just have like the coming up on is insane. And it has some quote, someone saying like, he told us how he cooked them, what they tasted like. I was like, I don't want to know that. When I scream about having a weird job, there's a line. Like, I don't want to know that.
I know.
This messed me up.
I cried.
This whole thing.
I sat in the office like right next to you and basically cried for 4 hours.
It's a bad scene.
I know. You know what I really like though?
What?
Jillian Pensavalle.
Patrick Hines.
Girl, before we get to the show, I just gotta remind the people we are making our Broadway debuts.
Look, I can't even really talk about it.
I know.
I'm so excited.
You guys, it's almost sold out. It's June 1st. We are inviting our fancy Broadway friends, Jessica Guarini, who you know from American Idol and Broadway, Ellen Marsh, and Leslie Margarita, Olivier Award winner. We are recapping that documentary, Frank Serpico, from Netflix from this year. I don't really know anything about it, but it's from that Al Pacino movie. It's all New York. Get ready to know how the wallpaper in the downstairs bath was.
Attica! Right? That's
Exactly. We only have about 70 tickets left, so if you're coming to see us make our Broadway debut and be the first podcast to ever play Broadway.
I know.
Come make history with us. Go to truecrimeobsessed.com, click on the CS Live link, get your tics.
Yep.
Also, if you want more Jillian and me, you guys, get in the Patreon. It's where we do all the series that you want us to cover, so it's like Making a Murderer, Don't F with Cats, The Menendez Murders.
Right, we just did the Aaron Hernandez doc on
Aaron
Netflix.
Hernandez, Lacey Peterson. It's
Lorena.
It's over 100 full bonus episodes for you to binge right this second. So get your phone storage ready. And for $5, you get all of that ad-free. Go to patreon.com/truecrimeobsessed or go to our website, click on the Patreon link. I'm going down. I usually go up. Patreon link.
I said it was cute.
No, I know. I'm just trying to mix it up. I'm trying to keep it fresh for you.
Okay.
We've been married for a while now.
We have been married. I mean, we really got to spice it up a little bit. Because it's real boring over here. What are you talking about?
Girl, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about Dahmer on Dahmer.
So, you guys, this is a two-parter from Oxygen. We are releasing episode 1 right now. Episode 2 is available right now and ad-free at the $5 level on the Patreon. It's going to be our regular episode. Next week, this was really hard. I cried watching this, and I almost never do that watching these documentaries.
Yeah, I felt very, like, physically ill through a lot of it. Very don't F with cats. Like, that kind of, like, I just got to ground myself, put my feet on the floor, and yikes.
You know, trigger warning, you guys, it's pretty gruesome. Like, it's Oxygen, and one of the things I love about the Oxygen documentaries is that they're pretty PG in what they show. So you're never surprised by seeing something really gross or really graphic, but we hear a lot of like graphic descriptions of things and we just have to talk about it because it's what's in the documentary.
Yeah, when you're a visual person like me, it doesn't matter that they don't play. It's almost worse when they don't see it because then my imagination gets to keep me up at night. So that's fun. It's real fun being me. It sucks to be me. That's from Avenue Q, everybody.
Yeah. I know society will never be able to forgive me. I know the families of the victims will never be able to forgive me for what I have done. Your Honor, it is over now.
If we're talking about
Jeffrey Dahmer,
we're talking about evil.
He said, when you find out what I did, you're going to want to kill me.
This man killed 15 people, 8 parts of their body.
I consider myself a survivor.
He's one of the great monsters of our time.
I loved Jeff because he was our son.
This gave it horrific dimensions that went beyond the typical serial slayer.
Crazy, sick.
Definition of evil.
He was more normal than we want to think he was.
And I thought that I'd just try to live as normally as possible and just bury it. But things like that don't stay buried forever.
It's very Bundy, and you know how I feel about
Ted Bundy. Yeah.
It's very like, he didn't look like a serial killer. And I'm like, yes, he does. And it's like, oh, wow. I just have to hear about some like mediocre white dude, how he was so charming and so this. Who cares? I'm so like,
I know. So listen, we got to talk right away about Nancy. What's her name?
Nancy Glass, which is not like a verbal typo.
No.
We're not saying Nancy Grace. Her name is Nancy Glass.
I wonder if she's related to Peter Glass or whoever it was who called Jan Brady in that episode where she made up a boyfriend.
George Glass. My boyfriend, George Glass. Sure, Jan.
So, like, the whole deal with this is that, like, this Nancy Glass person did this sit-down one-on-one interview with Jeffrey Dahmer, like, in the 90s.
Yeah.
And for some reason, like, I guess they waited 2 decades to make an Oxygen movie out of it.
Not celebrating the anniversary. Like, it's all these years later, and, like, let's bring up Dahmer again. Like,
I know.
What?
I'm Nancy Glass. In 1991, I'm sitting in a newsroom, and a story comes in that there's been a serial killer in Milwaukee. He killed people, he dismembered them, and worse, he was a cannibal. Well, at first, you just don't believe this. I mean, you got to look at it twice. And then, as a journalist, you say, I really want to get this story.
But I wanted to say it starts with her, but it's kind of a news reporter, and I wrote it out for you.
Oh, God, okay.
Okay, are you ready?
I'm always nervous you're going to break everything when you hand me this gargantuan ancient computer. From the 90s? Is this Nancy Glass's from the 90s?
Excuse you, that is officially a Dead Sea Scroll, that thing.
Okay. And this is a cold read.
Cold read.
For years, a serial killer had been preying on the city of Milwaukee. Finally, in the summer of 1991, it all comes to an end. When a frightened man in handcuffs approaches police. He leads them to the home of Jeffrey Dahmer. That's a long one.
Whoever wrote this for Nancy Glass
back in the 90s.
That's the style that they wrote it in. It's very ridiculous.
Yeah, it was probably a man.
I'm sure.
Not saying that Nancy Glass couldn't write her own copy. I'm just saying that's the nature of the world we live in.
Yeah.
So this is another thing, like, welcome to Oxygen. It's like we get a 20-minute coming up on, then the opening credits come, and then we get even more, like, to be seen. Can we just start the thing? You already have me forced to focus on Dahmer. Can we just start and get this thing over with?
I truly almost vomited just now.
I have a happy hour. Like, I can't. So Nancy explains, like, she heard about the case when he was caught in 1991, right?
Yeah, and Nancy Glass is sitting there being like, I'm going to get the scoop.
Right. Yeah, she has the little thing in her hat, the little card in her hat that says press. And so she wrote to Jeffrey Dahmer's parents.
Yeah.
For a year and a half.
I started communicating with Jeffrey Dahmer's parents and built a relationship with them. Eventually, Jeffrey and I started writing back and forth. And then, a year and a half later, I found myself sitting opposite him at the Columbia Correctional Institute in Wisconsin.
Eventually, Jeffrey Dahmer's like, yeah, I'll talk to her.
Right.
So she became friends with his parents first, and there's a lot here.
Yeah. Yeah, he killed at 817 people. Guys, we got a lot to get through.
There's just a lot. So this is sort of intercut with clips of the 1991 interview with Jeffrey Dahmer and Nancy Glass, and like present day Jeffrey Dahmer's father, his stepmother, some survivors. Like, it's just intercut a lot here.
The one thing I want to talk about before we get into it is that Nancy Glass, and you know she loves getting this question at a cocktail party, because she's like, hi, I'm Nancy Glass. I once interviewed Jeffrey Dahmer. That's how she introduces herself.
Absolutely. Does she have Twitter? It's on her Twitter bio.
Totally. But she says that, like, people always ask her when she sat down with him, was she afraid?
You know, people always wonder, was I afraid of him? Well, I wasn't, because by the time I was sitting opposite him, his killing spree was over. In fact, he appeared to be completely normal. And that was actually what was so unsettling.
It's a legit question, because she is like, there's no glass separating them. She's sitting right in front of this man who she knows 817 people. And she says, look, I wasn't afraid because he just seemed so normal, which is how he got away with this for so long.
Yeah, and she's like, and the killing spree was over. And I'm like, and you weren't his type.
Right.
Like, not saying, I don't want to be in a room with someone who's done that. I'm not saying that I'm this fearless person, but it's like, he's in prison.
Right.
He has this whole thing of like, this is where I should be.
Right.
I'm a horrible person. I should be here. I should be punished for my sins, blah, blah, blah. And also, Nancy, he was gay and preyed on other gay men, mostly gay men of color.
Right.
So Nancy girl with your blonde hair and blue eyes, like, you're good.
I know.
You're good. Don't worry about it. But she wants to say that. Like, and like, how many people have really asked her that? It's very like, many people are saying, everyone asks me. It's like, what, when you walk in, like, I'm here. I'm the one who spoke to Jeffrey Dahmer. Line is to the left, ladies. Let's go. Start asking me questions. Like, Nancy.
That is kind of how I enter a room. I do enter a room like, hi. It's me. Even when I've seen you 4 times that day and I've just gone to get water, I come back and I'm like, hi, I'm here. Are you excited?
The best part is that neither of us are Jeffrey Dahmer or have any of those urges. So
God.
Keep those hugs coming.
Because this is my job, I think about these like pedophiles, these murderers, these rapists, and I'm like, thank God I'm none of those things.
I haven't slept in 2.5 years. Yeah, I know the gig.
So So she sits down with Jeffrey Dahmer, and her very first question to him is, were you molested? Girl.
Were you molested?
Never. Never.
In your childhood, you have any memories of anything that you would associate with what you became?
No, that's the strange thing. I can't pinpoint anything.
Warm the guy up.
I know it's like 1991, and
Yeah.
we've come a long way, kind of, depending on who you ask or what day it is or who's speaking at the moment. But she's trying to ask him.
We've come a long way, or have we?
Or we haven't.
Jury's out, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. So she's trying to just get to the bottom of why he is the way he is.
Right, and of course he has to have been molested. It's the only thing that'll make sense.
It's the only thing. And Dahmer's like, no, like I had a pretty great, I mean, in a word, it was great. Like
It's
an
true.
excellent childhood. Like my parents were awesome. And then it's like, no, we're back to the 60s.
Right.
Welcome to the 60s.
Oh, mama, go, go, go. Oh, sorry, we were stopping.
That's Hairspray. We were stopping. That's Hairspray.
We are looking for the laughs wherever we can get them today, you
Can
guys.
you tell?
I know.
Can you tell?
I know.
We're getting them. God damn it. If I have to sing my way through this entire thing, I will do it. So we're in the 60s and we're like diving into Jeffrey Dahmer's childhood, and we meet Dr. Fred Berlin, who was a forensic psychiatrist.
There's no single history that causes someone to become a serial killer. Many of the individuals who are serial killers, not all of them, but many have had very traumatic early life experiences. In Mr. Dahmer's case, none of that seemed to be present.
So this Dr. Fred guy, he confirms that, Jeffrey Dahmer didn't have any trauma in his childhood at all.
Yeah.
And what he's not saying is that doesn't always make people serial killers.
Right. You know how I feel about this. That
it's ridiculous.
You guys, if you're not on the Pates, I gave a monologue in the Hernandez talk about how being sexually abused as a kid does not make you gay. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
God
or murderous.
Right.
Right. I mean, you guys.
I know.
But then we meet Lionel, Jeffrey Dahmer's father.
To which I screamed silently because there is something really crazy about meeting Jeffrey Dahmer's relatives. That is fucking crazy.
It is. Just a quick note, because this is not a visual medium, a quick note about Lionel.
Jeffrey's father, Lionel, now in his 80s, wanted to talk to us about the boy he knew. But he only agreed to an on-camera interview if he could wear sunglasses. In his mind, they make him less identifiable.
Lionel has agreed to talk to Oxygen.
Yep.
But he'll only do it wearing sunglasses, and not just any sunglasses. The biggest, most insane Anna Wintour, eat your heart out, gigantic glasses in the world. Lionel thinks this makes him less identifiable.
You guys, here's what I have in my notes 8,000 times. His last name is Dahmer. His name is Lionel Dahmer. So he's wearing the sunglasses, but he hasn't changed his name.
The minute they say he's not identifiable, pause, Googed, he's the first result in image search.
With no sunglasses.
With no sunglasses. And it's like, I understand, he's an older guy, but it's like, that's where it's like, Oxygen, can your producers, not make this guy look like an idiot?
Right.
And just say.
But it was his condition, not theirs.
Right, but they can say, look, we can put you in a darker room. These glasses just make him look like an idiot. And it's just, they didn't do right by him on this. Oxygen.
I agree. And even Nancy Glass, George Glass's mother, tells us he thinks it makes him less identifiable. Girl, it doesn't.
No, it most certainly doesn't.
No.
So here's the thing about where it's like, ooh, unreliable narrator, Jeffrey Dahmer. He's also a murderer and a rapist and a horrible person.
Right.
But he's like, no, you guys, my childhood was super perfect. Don't worry about that. No, not necessarily. Because Lionel and Lionel's wife, Sherry, who is not Jeffrey Dahmer's mother, she's his stepmother.
Yeah.
We get from them that Joyce, Dahmer's mother, struggled with mental illness for his entire childhood. What they really focus on, and it comes back later, is that Sherry, the stepmom, says that Joyce wouldn't let Dahmer have physical contact with anyone.
When Jeff was born, the grandparents were not allowed to hold the baby. Joyce didn't want anybody touching the baby or breathing on it. She was afraid of germs. They virtually had no contact with Jeff as a baby.
That's a big deal. I mean, we talk about this a lot in the foster care system that if babies aren't touched enough, they don't develop an attachment. You can get an attachment disorder, and that can lead to all kinds of mental illness and behavioral shit.
Right.
That's really real.
Yeah, because so they say she wouldn't let anyone touch him because of germs. She barely touched him, only to change his diaper. And we learn later that that physical connection is what Jeffrey Dahmer says he was always after to begin with.
But we also never get an answer. We never get a real doctor to tell us what makes somebody a serial killer. Because guess what, guys? Spoiler, we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know what makes somebody a serial killer.
We have no idea.
Also, I just have the note, Sherry Dahmer, sweetie, it's time to change that last name.
I mean,
you just got to change it.
I mean,
can you imagine like you're waiting for your reservation at Chili's and it's like Dahmer Party of 4?
You know when was the time to change it? In 1991 when he was caught.
Right. Just go back to your maiden name, sweetie.
I'm just saying.
You know what I mean? Dahmer.
Or like take this opportunity to pick a new one. Find who you are.
Pensavalle available.
I mean, come on. No, it's not. Electricity and Orbit, those are available. Just ask any cult. So by high school, we learned that Dahmer was interested in taxidermy.
During his adolescence, Dahmer develops a hobby that would raise eyebrows in the years that followed.
Were you obsessed with dead animals? Is that true?
I was interested in taxidermy in high school and experimented with preserving the bones of dogs and things like that.
Okay. I'm glad we're talking about this.
For like 2 seconds. We really got to speed through it.
Okay.
I hate it.
But here's my question. Taxidermy is a thing where like you take dead animals and you stuff them.
Well, here's the thing. What I have is not everyone who's interested in taxidermy and like insides of animals or biology or how people or things work becomes a serial killer. Most of them are just called scientists and biologists.
That's fine. When we had to do like, dissections in biology in high school, I was allowed to go to the library.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it,
No.
but we need scientists to figure out. That's how we get vaccines for the coronavirus, girl. If you're so scared, we need scientists to give a shit about what's going on inside us.
I totally agree, but I remember my biology teacher looking at our table and being like, "Oh, she doesn't need to be here,
Yeah,
Miss Hines. Miss Hines, go to the library."
Yeah, bye.
So we're still back in Jeffrey Dahmer's childhood, and we get Martha Schmidt. We're getting his like high school friends, and Martha Schmidt's like,
Jeff's behavior began to be so strange that I felt very uncomfortable being with him alone. He liked to act, in his words, crazy. He would just start shrieking, or he would twist himself up in a grotesque way. And I remember one time asking him why he behaved this way. And he said, I just like to shake people up.
You know, we were friends, but he was real weird, you guys.
She was like, yeah, one, felt uncomfortable being alone with him.
Yeah.
And two, he would intentionally shake things up. And I'm like, Dr. Martha Schmidt, sociologist. Now, hold on a second.
What do you mean by that, Martha?
And he would just be like a kooky guy making faces or whatever. Let the record show I don't like Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm not dismissing him at all. And maybe all of these things together. The attachment disorder, perhaps. I don't know if that was even a thing. The taxidermy, the shaking people up, the uncomfortable being alone in a room. Maybe when it all adds up, it's like, oh shit, dude. He like was a serial killer from the beginning. Obviously.
In this section, the craziest story is that we learned from some other guy that Jeffrey, for the yearbook, got himself into a whole bunch of pictures in like groups that he wasn't in, like the National Honor Society. And the person, you know, probably like the Steve Tipton of the day who was running the yearbook committee saw that Jeffrey Dahmer was in this photo, and rather than retaking it,
whoever was in charge of that in those days, they blacked out his face, and it's really creepy.
I had a classmate who said, years ago, we thought that photo was hilarious. And it's not so funny anymore.
So we did this to a bunch of groups that he wasn't in.
Yeah.
And I have Karen probably, who was head of the yearbook society or whatever, blacked out his face in all the photos in this really creepy way.
And so the picture of all these kids with Dahmer's face blacked out appears in the yearbook. We see it.
Yeah.
And they're like, it used to be really funny to look at that picture, and now it is creepy as fucking hell.
Guess what, Karen? It was creepy way back when. Who does that?
I know.
What a weird, like, I want a documentary on that bitch. Like, what kind of person? Unless he was just a monster every second of every day in high school, and it's like, no, he's not going to be in that goddamn yearbook picture.
You know what it was? It was that, like, to be in the National Honor Society, you needed to have a grade point average of, like, 3.7.
Well,
and he had, like, a 3.64, and Steve Tipton was not having it.
And that's the National Honor Society, fine, but, like, chess club.
Right.
Physics club. Whatever. He also was a drinker in school. Beer, scotch.
This is so weird. We learned that, like, he had, like, beer in his locker and beer in his car, and he was just drinking, and none of the teachers gave a shit. But Martha tells the story that, to me, sounded like she happened upon him in chemistry in, like, third period, and he was sitting there with, like, a rocks glass of scotch, just having a morning cocktail.
I remember distinctly one morning sitting in class next to Jeff, who had his cup of scotch, and I said, Jeff, what is that? He just tossed his head back as though it was no issue at all, and he said, "It's my medicine."
Martha tells his story like it's no big deal. Like he was just sitting there sipping a scotch. You guys, he's like 16 years old.
Right. So we get like some on-screen text and it's like dark fantasies. Okay.
Yeah.
And we learn that Dahmer would fantasize about joggers that he'd see in his neighborhood.
This is kind of a famous story. Like this is one of the only stories about Dahmer that I knew before watching this documentary.
Oh, I didn't know this at all.
Yeah, because look, Steve and I are not guilty of going to Central Park and like sort of,
You better finish that sentence fast.
sitting by the part where the joggers come by in the summer with their shirts off.
Okay.
You like
period, end of sentence.
Period. And we've never killed anybody.
Look, you have to be a faster talker when Steve and I are no strangers to going to the park and going where the joggers are and...
Okay, but I'm just saying, Jeffrey Dahmer was like a young gay kid and probably didn't have a lot of places where he could like see men or like, so he would hide in the woods and like stare at these joggers. He becomes fixated on this one particular jogger.
But he had no concept of how to make a relationship with this or any other man.
He took a bat, sawed it off, and fashioned it as a club, hid in the woods anticipating that he would assault this man.
Teenage Jeffrey sits nervously, waiting to attack. But the jogger he has his eye on doesn't pass that day.
They call this weapon a sawed-off bat. A sawed-off bat? What even is that? God only knows what he was going to actually do to this guy, but like, much to his chagrin, this jogger doesn't come by that day.
It was his rest day, thank God.
Oh my God.
You guys take the day off from jogging. Jogging gets you nowhere.
Jogging gets you murdered, you guys.
Don't jog. No, be healthy, but we're just saying be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful out there.
Yeah.
So high school ends, his parents divorce, and his mother leaves with his little brother that they also had.
Yeah, and I was thinking like, hang on, can we slow down on this story where it's like the mom just pieces out with the younger brother? She like obviously knows something's up with Jeff.
Right, and then Lionel moves into a hotel and leaves Jeffrey Dahmer, a high school kid, alone by himself.
Yeah, like everyone knows this kid's kind of fucking creepy, and both of his parents, according to this Oxygen documentary, just abandon him.
Right.
And one of these psychiatrists is like, and that's what made him kill.
He did not like that feeling. He didn't like his parents leaving him. And it's in that context that he committed his first homicide.
Yeah, they're like, and that's when he committed his first murder. It's like, yeah, well, this kid with fantasies and urges is left alone.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's an alcoholic because he's trying to like numb the pain. Yeah.
Right. And so he has, this is, you guys, just trigger warning. It's gonna start to get bad. Worse.
Yeah. It's been all fun and games up till now, but you guys, it's about to take a turn.
We haven't sung a show tune in like 5 whole minutes. One singular sensation. Every little. All right, ready?
Yeah.
All right, good. His next fantasy was fantasizing about picking up a hitchhiker,
right,
taking him home, and quote, having total dominance over him, which just makes me crazy.
Right.
So we meet Steve Hicks. He's 18. He's a hitchhiker.
Yeah, it's June 18th, 1978.
And Dahmer picks him up. They hang out. They drink. They smoked. And this is something that we learn. Like, the guys were going with him willingly. That's not a victim blamey thing. It's just like he was meeting guys. They thought they were having a nice time. And then like disaster strikes. So Steve was like, dude, I got to get to my rock show. Like, I'm going to go now. Like, this has been great.
He said we drank. He wanted to leave and I hit him with a barbell and I killed him. He says I didn't want him to leave me.
He like picks up a barbell and hits him over the head with it and then kills the guy like instantly.
And he's like, well, I just didn't want him to leave me. And I'm like, bitch, too bad.
Yeah. So remember, he lives alone in this house. There's nobody there to like be like, did you just kill that guy?
It's his parents' house.
Right. And so he dismembers him. You guys, like I don't know how to explain this in a way that's like not overly graphic, but like he cuts him up and puts him in a planter in the backyard.
And then suddenly he's like, well, shit, that isn't too great. This guy's literally in my backyard.
Right.
I should probably, quote, dispose of him elsewhere.
So he goes and like gets him. All of the body parts are in a trash bag. I know we got to talk about it.
I know. He
takes the trash bag, puts it in his car, and he's like driving to the dump. It's like the middle of the night, and we're told he's driving erratically. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, he's also hammered. He tells us over and over and over again that he drinks to get through this stuff.
Right.
And he's like driving erratically. A cop pulls him over.
He was so nervous that he was driving erratically, he was stopped by a police officer. Mr. Dahmer kept his wits about him. He told the police officer that his parents had recently divorced. He said he couldn't sleep and wanted to take a garbage bag to the garbage dump. The police officer shined a flashlight in, saw a green garbage bag.
And like, there's There's a lot of blame that goes to this cop, and I don't really get it. This cop pulls this kid over. This kid says, like, my parents just got divorced. I'm really fucked up about it. I'm just trying to take the trash out. I'm kind of a mess right now.
He talked his way out of the ticket.
We're told there's like the trash bag right there in the seat. The cop doesn't inspect the car. So this is the first of like many times that Dahmer just like gets away with it.
Right. And can you imagine, like, Steve's parents reported him missing in 1978 and they don't have any closure until 1991 when Dahmer's arrested.
And that's the thing. Like this is the heartbreaker of this case, is that like so many of these kids just go missing and there are just no answers.
Yeah. So remember Dr. Martha, his friend?
This woman, Martha, was his like friend, quotes, in high school.
But she was uncomfortable being alone with
Right.
him. But she's just like, hey, Oxygen called. Hold on. She ran a comb through her hair. She is ready for her close-up. Martha, the sociologist, doesn't get a lot of TV offers, I think. She's ready to talk about her friend, but not really friend. That guy she knew, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah. So anyway, she's back.
Yeah, and she's like,
I attended Ohio State University, and Jeff did as well. The last time I saw him, he was laying on the sidewalk, passed out, dead drunk. I went over to him, and I tried to shake him into consciousness. And I kept saying, Jeff, wake up, wake up. I knew then that Jeff was gone.
girl, so we ended up going to college together. Crazy. And she says, look, the last time I saw him, he was passed out drunk so bad that she couldn't wake him up.
On the side of the road, you guys.
Which, look, like, substance abuse here is not funny. That is a tragic situation when someone has been drinking themselves into, you can't wake them up on the street.
To be clear, we are pro cocktail.
Oh, we're pro cocktail.
Yeah.
But, like, very understanding about substance abuse, and that shit's not funny.
No.
And like when someone needs help, you're honest about it and you help them. But you and I are having a cocktail whenever we want.
Exactly.
But and don't count my drinks. Don't count them. Don't give me that, like, what is that, your third? Don't. I'm not asking you how many bourbons you're having. Leave me alone.
Have I ever counted your drinks?
You don't own me. I'm just trying to think of songs to sing. We got to get through this summer. Never once have you counted my drinks. Not a single time.
Never.
Never.
That's what we have husbands for, girl.
That's true. That is a friendship ender. But with the two of us, with other people, if you need it, you listen to your friends. They're trying to help you. To that point, Shari, the stepmother, who is with us a lot here, she says, look, we knew he had a substance abuse problem.
We found out he was drinking at school and failing out, so we brought him home. We took Jeff for psychiatric care. We took him to institutions. But as the old saying goes, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
I want to talk about Shari for a minute here, because Shari came into Jeff Dahmer's life when he was 18 years old. She was not his birth mother. I don't know if we'll get into it later, so I'm going to say it here. She talks about how she was the one who taught he and his brother how to clean a house, how to, like, clean the refrigerator, cook your own goddamn meals. Like, I love this woman. She never abandons him. And it's the kind of thing, like, Jeffrey Dahmer is obviously a monster, but, like, she considers herself his mother, and she doesn't leave him. She loves him. She loves him to this day. And it's like, I'm a mother too. Like, I understand that. I get it. This is why I was crying so much. I was crying. I mean, all of these victims were murdered in a horrible way, and Oxygen, thank God, they spare us a lot of the details. So my crying wasn't as much for that, not because it's not as awful and tragic. We just didn't get into it as much. And I was approaching this as a parent of, like, when you are faced with that decision of, like, my child is an absolute monster, what do I do?
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to hold up the mirror to you a little bit and say, well, you see yourself in her. Because there have been countless times on this podcast where you've said, yeah, I'll admit Daisy's a monster, but I'm not going to stop loving her if she happens to do something to do that. I'm not saying tomorrow you're going to say that, unless I don't know how tonight goes. It's early, 7:04. But you've said so many times, so I think you see yourself as like, wow, so you can do that, right? Like, here's an example from your eyes as someone who's just like, I have the last name Dahmer still for some reason.
I know.
I totally think he's a monster. Everything he did was horrible and atrocious. However,
I love him.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I love Shari. She just cries her way through this whole thing. And I felt a kinship with her. So then we get this whole story about how Jeffrey Dahmer joins the military. He's only in the military for like a year and a half.
Well, his dad thinks that's the only way to fix him is send him to the army.
Which is a kind of an old school way of thinking. But in this instance, it kind of works. Like, Jeffrey Dahmer goes dormant for 9 years, or does he?
I was going to say, wait a second, girl. My notes say something totally different. Did you stop? Because I still have six pages of notes here.
No, because Nancy Glass tells us that Nancy is breaking a story here, you guys. There are two men that were in the military with Jeffrey Dahmer. Both of them were his bunkmates, who are here to tell us that he actually wasn't dormant during this 9-year period that everybody thinks he was. He was drugging and raping people in the military, and these two guys are here to tell us about it.
For the first time, 2 of his fellow servicemen are making accusations the public has never heard before.
Right. Their names are Billy Joe Capshaw and Preston Davis.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the stories are exactly that. Like, Preston tells us that it happened to him, and it really fucked up his life. He had alcohol and drug abuse issues. It really messed up his marriages.
My career went downhill after this. I got a DWI in 1985 in the military. I had a rocky marriage with my first wife. I wound up getting out of the military in '86, divorcing her. Became estranged from my son. Substance abuse, alcohol abuse. That's what a lot of victims do to try to suppress that pain.
Billy Capshaw is basically the same story. Like, Billy Capshaw looks kind of like a mess to this day. Like, you can see that, you know, they both talk about how they didn't report it. You couldn't men on men rape. That was not a thing you could talk about in the military.
And these guys were super young, too.
There's guys in there, and they got guns, and they're mean. They've been to Vietnam. As a 17-year-old kid, would you really get that out in your unit that someone raped you?
What 17-year-old is allowed to join the army? Like,
yeah.
70s, you guys were wild.
I know.
Crazy shit going on in the 70s. But so Dahmer was kicked out of the army, not because of the rapes, but because of his drinking.
Right. They didn't know about the rapes. They knew about the drinking.
Right. I just want to be very clear.
Yeah. And he moves back with his dad and Sherry, and this is where, like, the dad and Sherry are both telling us.
I did as much as I thought I could. He seemed to be an alcoholic, so we got help that way and that sort of thing.
Look, we knew he was fucked up. We did everything we could for him.
Yeah, he'd sneak out of counseling, he'd lie. And what they're saying is that they wanted to help the substance abuse. They have no idea about any other urges or fantasies or anything violent towards another human being.
Right.
So they decide, you know what? Nothing is really working. Let's send him up with his grandmother. He's going to pray the gay away. Excuse me.
I was really like, what?
Dahmer's grandmother believes that through God, Jeffrey will change his sexuality. So he attends church and gets a job drawing blood at a local blood bank.
Pray the gay away. They're going to pray the gay away with grandma.
Because I was like, oh, wait, so I guess he came out to his family? Because it's just told, like, shipped him up to grandma, pray the gay away. And I'm like, okay, so I guess Sherry and Lionel knew he was gay. Okay.
The one thing that we also learned, though, is that when he goes to live with grandma, he gets a job drawing blood at a blood bank.
I know.
How ghoulish is that?
I know.
That really gave me a chill.
Except when it's needed and very important.
No, I'm saying, no, giving blood.
For Jeffrey.
Yeah. Look, I could talk about the politics of giving blood forever. You know I'm not allowed to give blood.
I know. I
so
can't
look,
stand
I could
that.
talk about it for forever, but I'm just saying that, like, Jeffrey Dahmer, can you imagine being like...
Specifically, Jeffrey Dahmer drawing blood is very ghoulish. You're absolutely
very
correct.
ghoulish.
You're absolutely correct. Yes. Again, from a science point of view.
Yes, needed.
And
you should go give blood even though I'm not allowed to. You should still do it, but you should also be lobbying to change these fucking archaic rules.
Right. If I didn't have back sweat coming down me and ruining my Columbo shirt, I would say, hold on, let's just do another podcast on that because I could talk about it forever. I think that is so fucking stupid.
I know. It's unreal. And it's real. If you guys don't believe me, give it a Goog right now. Like, this is a real thing. It's unbelievable.
It's horrible.
So during this time, he exposes himself to a woman and children at the state fair, and he gets arrested. And once again, we get another story of him, like, just getting away with it because he was remorseful to the judge.
In court, he appears remorseful, which will become a routine for him. And all he gets is a fine, $50, plus court fees.
And a lot of people are just like, well, he just, whatever. He just, like, showed his junk. And I'm like, I don't agree with that. You can't just show your junk, Louis C.K., when people don't act. Like, you can't just do that.
No.
So people are just like, whatever. He'll pay the fine. He seems sorry.
Right.
Let's just let him loose.
Get him out of here.
Let's just get him out of here. So what Dahmer wanted was, quote, a partner who would lay with him all night. And we're learning this from, like, his psychiatrists and doctors and all this stuff.
His goal was finding the partner who would lie there all night so that he could have the illusion of all the time in the world to be close to that person. And his strategies for finding that partner were creative and varied, but mostly ineffective.
So, okay, this really struck me because
it's real dark.
It's getting really dark, you guys, and wait till we get to episode 2.
I'm wringing my hands.
I know.
Ouch.
Episode 2 is wow. But, like, the thing that we are told here, but from one of the doctors, is that he was looking for a substitute for killing. I very much believe that, like, you as a person, no matter what you're born with, if you're a pedophile, if you're a serial killer, if you're born with that sort of monstrous instinct, you are very much responsible for the actions that you take as a result of it. But it is a very interesting thing to see that he was like really trying to do anything he kind of could to not have to kill people. And this is where we learn about escalations, and this shit always escalates.
And also what he's doing is still illegal. So let's dive into like how he's trying to avoid killing people.
Yes.
But it's still disgusting and illegal.
It's so gross. Are you going to talk about the scanning of the obituaries, or should I?
I think you just did, girl.
He was scanning obituaries and then trying to find like people who had recently died. He would then go to the viewing to see if he was sexually attracted to the corpse. And if he was, he would go and try to dig them up. I'm going to lean into that word ghoulish. I'm at ghoulish. I'm going to stay there.
It's a word we don't use as much as I want us to.
Know.
Stay tuned next week where I use the word ghoulish every 5 seconds. I'm going to be like, you know who's ghoulish this week? So we learn like, oh, no, but wait, you guys, it's okay because the ground was too frozen, so he couldn't dig up the bodies. Okay.
On the 2 occasions that he did that, the ground was too frozen. He couldn't get anywhere trying to dig it up.
He didn't actually get to like grave rob these corpses. It is so
and then do like
creepy.
Unspeakable things with them.
Then we learn about an attractive mannequin. You guys, he went into a store, he found a mannequin he thought was hot. He hid in the bathroom until the store closed, and then he stole the mannequin.
He hid in a restroom in the department store till after closing, stole the mannequin, managed to get out of the building, took the mannequin home to his grandmother's house, and for some period of time was satisfied lying next to the attractive mannequin.
For him, it was exactly what he wanted. Like a partner that would shut up.
For now.
Yeah, I know. That like wouldn't have opinions or thoughts or want to connect them in any way. Lay there. And we see these creepy like reenactments of this guy like rubbing the stomach of the mannequin.
Whose resume is that on? TV. Oxygen. Director. Somebody. Karen. Role. Dahmer.
It's fucking
young
crazy.
Dahmer.
But then we learn that the grandmother, who I think is garbage because she wants to pray the gay away, but that doesn't save her from the heart attack she must have had the day that she walked into his bedroom and found the mannequin in his bed.
Right, so she threw it out.
I think she threw it out after she screamed her fucking head off. You don't know it's a mannequin right away.
No.
You just like see a part of a body in a bed and you like I would have a heart attack and die.
Yeah. So now what's he gonna do? He decides, for whatever reason, he goes from mannequin to next stop, the bathhouse.
Right.
So here's what he would do at the bathhouses. He would meet men and strike up a conversation. He would be interested. According to the documentary, they would be interested. And then he would take them home.
Yeah.
Consensually. The men would be like, yeah, cool. Like, let's go hang out. And then when they got to Dahmer's place, that's when everything got really, really bad.
Yeah.
So he would drug them and then rape them when they were totally knocked out, because again, what he wanted was for them to be totally out. Like he wanted them to be dead, basically.
Right, yes.
So he would knock them out so badly that they had no idea what was happening. And then like he would pretend, according to one of these doctors, as he was raping them, that they were dead.
Right.
And now it's 1987, and this is what Oxygen says the spree begins. The ground was too cold to dig up dead bodies, which is like 0 to 100. Girl.
I know.
Start with a mannequin.
I know.
Like, why is the mannequin the backup for the thing? Like, it's so horrible.
I know.
So,
do you mean it's ghoulish?
It's so ghoulish.
It's so ghoulish.
So ghoulish. And so we're starting to hear from him, right?
Yeah.
We're starting to hear from him more and more now. And he's telling Nancy Glass back in the 90s in this interview that, like, the spree started because, like, all he wanted to do was drug the guys. You guys, like, it's really all he wanted. And he really wants us to know that. And he's telling Nancy Glass, he's like, Nancy girl, all I wanted to do was drug them to the point where they were totally passed out.
One time I brought this young man back to the hotel room, the Ambassador Hotel. Was just planning on drugging him and spending the night with him. I had no intention of hurting him. When I woke up in the morning, he had a broken rib here, was heavily bruised. Apparently I had beaten him to death with my fists.
And then suddenly I woke up and the guy, I don't know what happened, but he was beaten to death.
Yeah, so Jeffrey Dahmer is either lying or he blacked out and beat this guy to death. And this is his first kill in 9 years.
Right.
So then we get, going into a commercial, we get this news reporter.
Coming up, Dahmer's crimes escalate and the bodies are piling up, Tom.
I literally have, what's the next thing that I have?
Nancy!
Nancy! Like, who wrote this copy?
Yeah.
Nancy!
So the victim was Stephen Twomey. He was 24 years old. And after not know or lying to Nancy Glass or whatever, he takes Stephen Twomey's body and he puts it in a suitcase and he brings it to his grandmother's house, the grandmother who wants him to pray the gay away. And he dismembers the body while she is at church.
I mean, oh God. And then he like literally throws the body into the garbage and it's thrown away.
Right, except for a couple of things, because Dahmer says he didn't kill these people because he hated them. There wasn't anger there, but he killed them because he wanted to keep them and be with them forever.
I had these obsessive desires and thoughts wanting to control them, to, I don't know how to put it, possess them permanently.
And that is why he would save body parts like bones and tendons and just things that make me, I will never eat again. You know, the Dahmer diet, I don't want to condone it, but if you never want to eat again, look up some shit on Jeffrey Dahmer.
I know. It's really, I mean, this was the stuff that I was like literally gagging.
It's horrible.
Listening to.
Yeah. So now we're in 1988. We have two more victims, James Dockstader, who's 14 years old, and Richard Guerrero, who's 23. And he's starting to have a pattern now. So he would drug these people, he would strangle them when they were passed out, and then dismember them.
It's at this time Dahmer hones his craft in disposing of bodies, learning how flesh dissolves in acid and bones would need to be crushed up and tossed in the trash.
And this is all happening in his grandmother's house.
In her basement, as a matter of fact. While she's at church. Happy Sunday, everybody. So one day, Granny's like,
oh, God.
Ooh, she comes downstairs.
I cannot believe you just made a snap. If I did that, you would yell at me for a week.
Why?
I don't know.
How long have you been married?
It's been a couple of years.
You don't know what sets me off?
I know.
It's a real problem.
I would never question your taste in the wallpaper in the downstairs bath. Not
because
ever.
It would be perfect.
Right.
It would be perfectly our style, but also very welcoming. People, whatever. It doesn't matter.
The bottom line is the grandmother does not like the smells coming from the basement.
According to Lionel, his grandmother objects to the smells coming from the basement, but apparently doesn't figure out what's going on, or maybe she just doesn't want to.
But she does nothing about it.
Right, exactly.
Okay, well, whatever. So Sherry, the stepmom,
who I love.
So I guess Granny calls Sherry and is like, Sherry girl, something smells, but maybe she's scared to do something about it. I don't know, but she wants to pray the gay away, and we hate that.
We hate that, yeah.
She doesn't get the benefit of the doubt for me. Sorry, Granny. We're not sorry. It doesn't matter. So Sherry's like, all right, fine. Lionel, go up to your mother's house and figure out what's going on in the basement. It's probably the septic tank.
I love how you're saying his name. I just called him like Lionel, but you really are. It's like
I'm leaning into it, Lionel.
It's like me and Jacqueline from Dirty John.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's like Lionel Barrymore to me. It's very old school. It's the glasses. It's the stupid sunglasses. I just want to say Lionel. You know when you're like annoyed at someone and you have to stretch their name out?
Oh, yes. Oh my God, yes.
So anyway, so Lionel has to go up there. And the thing is, Sherry's like,
I would send Lionel up to his mother's house to deal with problems, but I really wasn't aware at that time that Lionel was too naive to handle the situation.
He was too naive. He's not going to deal with his mother. And I'm like, can we talk about the fact that it smells like a dead body in her basement, and your son that you kind of don't want to really look at is doing it all? The thing is, Sherry makes it sound pretty clear like she knew what was going on, and they all kind of knew what was going on, and no one wanted to deal with it. So I'm like, Sherry girl, what did you know and when? And so his own father's like,
he was doing strange things. We thought it was with roadkill. That's what he told us, and I believed him.
Whatever, you're just a weirdo, and I'm not gonna look into why, but I'm gonna do the thing I did earlier. I'm just gonna make you live on your own. I'm kicking you out of grandma's house.
Totally.
That's done.
So it's September 1988, and he moves into his own place in Milwaukee.
He's out on his own a week.
Yeah.
And something horrible happens.
He brings home a 13-year-old boy and drugs and molests him, which is like, oh my God, this guy is a rapist, a murderer, a serial murderer, and a cannibal, and a pedophile?
I know.
Oh my God.
They're all bad independently, but
I
when
know.
you put them together, it's like, God.
I know. And he gets arrested for this. Like somebody says weirdly, when this kid said he wanted to go, Dahmer let him go.
Just let him go. And so he's arrested and charged. He's charged with sexual assault against a minor.
Right.
And we hear the boy's testimony, which is horrible.
Yeah, and so this kid gets away, and we meet, this is so fucking crazy. We meet this attorney, Jerry Boyd, who's here to tell his story, so I don't want to make him a garbage monster, but they're like...
It was pretty clear to me that he's a little bit different. I think my son was in freshman in high school at the time. I think he could have whipped Dahmer in a minute. Never would have believed that he was a killer, ever. Because there was nothing to indicate to me that he was that way. I mean, it just wasn't there.
To be fair to Jerry Boyd, nobody knew about the murdering and the dismembering. That's not what he's being brought up on charges for.
Sherry knew a little.
But nobody had any confirmation. So the attorney Jerry is like, look, all I knew was that I'm his lawyer. It's my job to keep him out of jail. And that's what I did.
And the thing is, from Jerry's point of view, not mine, but Jerry's, is that look, he fondled him.
Yeah.
He let him go. And he's a mediocre white guy who is acting very remorseful.
Now, I would say, with hindsight of it being 2020, if a grown man fondles a kid, it's not the first time and it definitely won't be the last. You don't let this guy go out on the street. This poor attorney Jerry guy, and I don't know if I feel for him or not, but he is the man that is responsible for Jeffrey Dahmer being back out on the street. Imagine that's your calling card.
Right. He's also the man who signed the release form for Oxygen, so he's happy to talk about it.
Right. That's a thing that would weigh heavy on my conscience.
Right. So nothing really happens, and Dahmer walks among society, and then by March 25th of the following year, just a couple months later, he kills 24-year-old Anthony Sears. And Anthony Sears was a major turning point.
Yeah, and again, you guys, major trigger warning. Jeffrey Dahmer has no problem telling Nancy Glass,
I kept the mummified head and skull of one of the victims in a carrying case in my locker at work.
And then Oxygen is just oh, surprise. So by the way, this was all happening in the middle of the 13-year-old sexual assault case.
Right.
At the same time.
Right.
So it's lawyer Jerry girl.
I know.
Oof, Maron. That's not a good look at all.
I know.
At all.
He must be retired because he would not want anybody to know that if he was still practicing.
I know. God, I wouldn't want anyone to know it ever. I am not the person to be I had contact with Jeffrey Dahmer. Who wants to ask me? I would just go straight to the bar at the party. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I want to live my life.
And so, as punishment for this, sexually assaulting this young boy, he gets a work release program.
Because he's I'm going to admit to everything except the touching part. And I'm bitch, that's exactly what you're fucking charged with.
Exactly. Basically, he skates free. And okay, are you ready? He moves into the Oxford Apartments in Milwaukee, Unit 213. It's May 1990.
Right.
We meet his next door neighbor and personal friend, Pamela Bass.
Pam.
She is a complicated character, you guys.
Pam is...
Just keep saying her name.
Pam. Because I don't know where to go with it.
I know.
Pam says the following statement.
Yes.
I had asked him a number of times, why are you down here? When you can go somewhere else and stay, in West Allis at your grandmother's house or something like that, and you would rather be here where you're surrounded by blacks. And that's all that was over there was black people and some Asian people. He was I like it better down here because I can keep more to myself.
She really wants us to know that she couldn't understand why Jeffrey Dahmer wanted to live in an all-black area with a couple Asian people in it.
Right.
Again, you just heard her say it. My job is to talk about the documentary.
Yeah, totally. Then she starts to tell us that she developed a soft spot for him, and she and her husband were trying to find him a girlfriend.
Yeah.
You guys barking up the wrong tree.
Right. And as soon as he moves in, the next day, Pam and her husband are do you need any help moving the fridge? And he's no, I'm all good. Just leave me alone. Because he's luring in men to his apartment.
Yep.
So he lures in this guy named Raymond Smith for a drink. He does the same thing, you guys. He drugs him. He strangles him. He assaults, dismembers, and disposes.
Yeah.
And then nothing happens. Now we're in June 1990.
Right. And so a month later, he does it again. This victim's name is Edward Smith. Same thing. Drugs, rapes, assaults, strangles, the whole deal.
Right. The thing is, this is where we learn from the doctors is sometimes the guys didn't want to be cozy. Sometimes the guys who they just wanted to get laid.
The men he's inviting back don't want to just lie there. They want to get it on, get it over with, and get going. He found that enormously frustrating. Some of them rolled him. Some of them were nasty to him. He didn't want to get into an argument or get into a fight or get robbed. He wanted somebody to lie there with him.
They weren't there for a relationship, their prerogative, whatever. And Dahmer was like, no, I want you to lay here with me and act like a dead body.
He just like, I'm laughing because it's all so absurd. He just wanted them to like, shut up and like play dead.
And the thing is, like, he didn't want them to struggle. He wanted to dehumanize these people. And they were just like, look, I met you at like the one secret gay bar here. I'm not really looking for a relationship right now.
Yeah, and like, we're back to the interview with Nancy and Dahmer, and like, this is where he's talking about how like
it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. When you depersonalize another person and view them as just an object for pleasure instead of a living, breathing human being, it seems to make it easier to do things you shouldn't do.
Right. And so he's like, well, I can explain everything that I did to them in detail, but he couldn't remember their names. And I'm like, oh, so it's kind of like how your bartender knows your drink, but not your name.
Totally.
Is that exactly the same thing? No, a little different. But if anyone has ever been a bartender, you have your regulars.
You're looking at him.
I know.
I'm
talking to our listeners.
I know. Beefeater straight up no vermouth is here?
Yeah.
How is he? How's his daughter?
Great. Yeah, you know everything about them. You've given them the best advice they've ever had. You guys are pals. You're actual friends.
Yeah.
Can't remember his name. Know exactly what the credit card looks like to run the tab. And then you try to look at it, but then you're trying to quiz yourself during a busy night on everyone's name. And it's like, girl, those names are never going to stick. No, I'm the same way. You don't have to know my name. Just know my drink.
Right. My drink is my name.
Exactly.
You guys, that's how episode 1 ends. So episode 2 is available right now in ad-free on the Patreon at the $5 level. You don't have to wait to watch us really go down into a very dark place, which is about to happen in episode 2.
Yeah, if you need like 20 minutes to collect yourself, take it. But you don't have to wait like all that time. You can wait 20 minutes.
I'm glad that we found as many laughs as we did in episode 1. That actually makes me feel good about episode 2.
Just sing it out. Sing out, Louise. Sing through it. We'll always find a way.
Oh, you guys, we love you so much. Just a reminder, we're going to Broadway.
I know. Speaking of show tunes.
Oh my God, give my regards to Broadway June 1st, you guys.
Yeah.
It's going to be a crazy show. We're making history. We're the first podcast to ever play Broadway.
I can't believe it. We can give those regards ourselves because we'll be there Monday, June 1st.
Exactly. So if you're coming, get your tickets. As of this recording, we're down to about 60 tickets left. Join us. If you want more Julian and me, get in the Patreon. At the $5 level, you guys, over 100 full bonus episodes. It's where we cover all of the series you want us to cover.
Yeah, Jinx, Making a Murderer, Lorena.
Serial Season 1.
OJ.
Lacey Peterson, Menendez Brothers, Don't F with Cats. It's crazy town.
Yeah, crazy.
Oh my God. Okay, girl, where can they find us?
They can find us at truecrimeobsessed.com. That's our website. You get everything you could possibly need there.
It's with Patreon link, merch, the CS Live link for live shows.
Promo codes.
All of our episodes are there.
Yeah.
They can find you at Jillian with a J on all the things.
And you are, it's been so long since we've done this. You are Patrick Hines _ on Instagram and at Patrick Hines on Twitter.
And the TCO Instagram is True Crime Obsessed Podcast.
Right.
You guys, we also just launched a brand new podcast, Obsessed with Abducted in Plain Sight.
Yes.
I was on Access Hollywood talking about it. Whatever. Check it out if you haven't. It's 4 episodes with me and Sky Borgman, the director of the film. All the crazy bonkers shit that didn't make it into the documentary. Go check it out. All 4 episodes are available right now.
It's crazy.
And don't forget, you can get episode 2 right now at the $5 level on the Patreon.
Yeah, here we go.
And then our outtakes, which are going to be amazing. I was really afraid that we were just going to like not have anything to say, but I think our outtakes are going to be bonkers.
We sung it out.
All right, we love you.
Bye. Thank you.
No one had a clue as to what was happening for over a decade.
He became like a killing machine out of control.
There just seemed to be an absence of any moral compass. He was an evil man.
The manager came up and complained about the smell. He told the manager, well, my fish died.
He had a very good disguise.
I had these obsessive desires and thoughts wanting to control them.
He immediately said, when you find out what I did, you're going to want to kill me.
You love who the true human being is, and you take that with you to your grave.
He seemed like a very normal boy. He covered up so much.
Murder, necrophilia,
Zombies, religious ritual,
fats and acid,
body parts,
aroused, consuming,
grilling,
cooked them,
dead people.
He was our son.
tell the people that with like the threat of coronavirus, we figured out a way to keep recording even if we all have to stay inside.
You did. You're at 100. I am very much not. Please.
It's the beginning and the end of where Dahmer and I agree.
I think we agree on one thing.
Which is that gay bars are fun?
Gay bars are super fun.
Yeah.
Then it ends there because the rest of his sentences I super don't agree with, whatever he wants to do next.
You know how my notes are all in different colors? I have a specific color for Jillian's not going to like this.
What color is it?
It's red. I just don't understand why taxidermy is a thing. It also was very Norman Bates to me. You know, he did taxidermy.
Yes.
He's not real.
Yeah, I was, yes, fictional character.
Yeah. The only time I've ever counted your drink where I'm like, girl, is that only your 6th?
You get mad sometimes if I know. If I'm just like, no, I'm okay. And you're like, really?
I know.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. That's usually if we're doing like a bank heist or something. With the Dahmer, I'm just like, girl, give me.
No, we need it.
You only brought one bottle for
I
me?
wasn't going to drink tonight, but here we are.
It's Dahmer.
Hashtag so ghoulish.
That's my drag name.
Like SOUX ghoulish.
Sorry, ghoulish.
But also, he had to move out of his grandmother's house. The dad was like, you got to get out of here, girl. So
Grandma was like, in translation,
girl, get out of here.
You didn't pray the gay away hard enough.
Exactly.
Goodbye.
With hindsight of like, you know, it being 2020, if a guy fondles...
Literally, like hindsight's 2020 and it is 2020.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Still quick. I still got it. This podcast is going to go on forever, you guys. I still got it. Sharp as a whip.